And welcome back, guys, to an episode of Geek Centurions. It's me, your boy Eli,
It's me, Joe.
and we're here to talk about Andor and She-Hulk, which totally forgot Andor was coming out.
Yeah, Andor. Because I remember when it first announced, I was like, "Really, we're making a show about a show about Andor?" Because he was granted, it wasn't like I don't think he was an unpopular character from Rogue One, but it was a very interesting choice for a character. For like, all right, we're making a show about this character from Rogue One. You know, out of all the characters, like that's the one we're going with. Which I mean, I have
To be fair, what was her name?
Jin.
Jin Ursa was cool, but I'm kind of okay with what we got.
Yeah. I think she had a more or less a decent character arc in that movie, but yeah, I was always very intrigued by the decision with Andor, or at least making a show about Andor.
Well, the difficulty comes in the fact that you are writing a character who you already know dies.
Yeah, but it does seem like this show is more or less seems to be sort of like he's kind of like before he's because this before he joins the rebellion stuff. Because I think this is the whole point of the show is the show the rise of the rebellion in a way.
Yeah, it's another point of view of the rise. So obviously we have to talk about. Well, not have to talk about. Obviously that has to be addressed, and Cassian is sort of a viewpoint character for the rise of the rebellion because that's a situation where, I don't really think they're. Well, I'll say this: I like how there's not a conclusive idea of like, hey, this is how it started. It's like, no, we all have our different reasons. We all formed a rebellion. These are different points of like where you can say it started, but not really.
Because I think I guess it sort of draws from like maybe real life like revolutions and rebellions of that kind of nature, where like, you can probably pinpoint.
This is the start of the rebellion.
Yeah, but it's like no, there's probably like different variations or like more like for different people it started at different things,
But if that's the case, yeah, you're right. Because like, say like the American Revolution, you can say this is what started. This is what started. Teapot.
The Boston Tea Party. But some people would say like it's the Boston Massacre. That's like sort of like maybe they ignited it. But it's like it's a for the I guess for the Star Wars and the Rise of the Rebellion is different factors. Obviously, and like also it's like a galactic empire. Obviously, different parts of the empire was probably rebelling at different points, and it wasn't until a certain group of people were like, hey, let's actually just form a collective group and actually
which might be something we see in this series. I'm not saying we will, but like by the end of the point, it's like, oh, why don't it's like we have to it's by the end of the 3 episodes, because it's 3 episodes, right? Then and by the end of it, you're kind of like, okay, this is where our boy gets into rebellion stuff. But like, yeah, this show in of itself kind of establishes Andor as kind of how we knew him as in Rogue One, a very what's the word I'm looking for? Not ruthless.
He very like
he has to do what he has to do.
Yeah,
he ain't proud of it.
Yeah, like he gets into a very sticky situation in the first episode, which I gotta say, like the first scene of the episode feels very cyberpunky to me.
Yeah.
Considering like because
there was a moment I was like, man, this is giving me some like Blade Runner vibes.
Yeah, like weirdly enough, which I think is kind of maybe like the whole point of him. Because I mean, yeah, Andor, like as we see him in Rogue One, they're all like spies and like trying to get the Death Star plans and stuff like that. So yeah, it's an interesting. I think it's a nice visual sort of like Andor is maybe he's not like ruthless. He's a bit shady. He does things that he doesn't like to do. he tries to avoid like conflict, but if he has to like fight, he has to fight, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So very interesting qualities, and obviously, in that first episode, that sticky situation causes, pretty much a ripple effect that leads him to some guy. It's a it will lead him down to the path of the rebellion.
Yeah,
is what we're getting at.
Yeah, and it kind of goes into also like just how much power the Empire has, because like you find out that Cassian is from a native planet with not much. Would you say there's not much intelligence in where he's from?
I wouldn't say that. I think it was more of a. He comes from like basically what it feels like is like a small like low tech village, like they live in huts and stuff, and apparently their planet was being mined by an imperial, by the Galactic Empire, but it was abandoned because of some toxic gases, and it's a very interesting sort of look because we do see sort of his life beforehand. We meet, we find out about that he had a sister and stuff. It's a very interesting sort of perspective from him. Like maybe from that point of meeting the Empire on like that sort of level, sort of instilled like a deep seated spite of the Empire.
There's just a lot of anger there, and
it's very reminiscent of like probably like old timey like when like colonial stuff, where like of the like the real world where like colonial powers would travel around the world, exploiting the resources and the people.
Yeah,
and that kind of thing.
And I'll say this: it's good to see Diego Luna back as Andor, because he was like one of the best things about Rogue One. Like him, the droid, Donnie Yen, were like some of the best things about that movie. And get to see him again. But which, by the way, there will be some returning cast members from that movie into the show. I think Forrest Whitaker is coming back for Rogue One,
being Saw Gerrera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That'd
be neat.
That'd be something good to see. Obviously, now when we're talking about the fact that this is based on the Rogue One was a very grounded look at Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
So there was no Jedi magic or anything.
Yeah, it is just straight up the point of view of the rebellion, you know,
a real point of view.
Yeah.
So how do you feel as this being an entire show, which is something that obviously we don't get a lot of in terms of like Star Wars?
I think it's interesting because I feel like a lot of from like some of the criticisms of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows has been that they focus a bit too much on like stuff that we kind of already know, like I think like people like Mandalorian was obviously great, but I think people's problem with the second season was mainly in terms of like focusing on stuff like a lot of like it felt a bit fan servicey, right? Like we meet back with Bo-Katan. There's an episode dedicated to Ahsoka. Boba Fett comes back. Obviously the ending with Luke Skywalker. It's a lot of these things where you're like, this show feels like it's supposed to be like a bounty hunter show, right? Or just Mando going around.
Yeah, it kind of felt like we kind of forgot what the show was about. What things that we liked about it. Like it is sort of like, people's always compared it to Lone Wolf and Cub, right? It stopped feeling like that. It started feeling more in line with what the we're used to with Star Wars, rather than such a different point of view.
Yeah, and I think some people kind of want there to be like different like points of view of the Star Wars universe. I think that's what was great about Rogue One in a sense of like it's a grounded like boots on the ground rebellion kind of thing.
It was dark.
Yeah, and it has probably one of the darkest endings of a Star Wars movie. Our main heroes all die.
Yeah.
Yes, the Death Star plans have been taken, but at the cost of great life.
Which is like a lot of times that happens in the Star Wars movies. especially because like considering how many people like just die to get the, and this is that's what you're getting, and you can say, and also like, where am I going with this? Yeah, because the way that ends, everyone you like dies, yes, and it's kind of a really like slow and like we're just gonna accept our death kind of a going ending because like Cassian and Jin, they just like hug it. They hug it out. It's like this is it. This is over for us.
Yeah. Again, it's a point ending, and I think, like I said, like I think people want like more stuff like that. Like not like I think not to say that people are tired of like Jedi's and like I think it's more of like.
I mean, they're coming out with another show that's called Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, like I think it's more of people are, or at least some people feel like for Star Wars to like advance or like rather they need to like they at least pull back from like all the stuff with the Skywalker stuff.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that seems like a common critique of Star Wars nowadays. It's like it's all focused on, the Skywalkers, which I mean, it kind of was set up that way in a weird way. Like, granted, the original trilogy, follows Luke and stuff, and George wanted to expand upon that with the prequels. So
by focusing on
Anakin and his,
fall to the dark side.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's in the DNA of Star Wars, if you want to, like, make the argument, but at the same time, the Star Wars universe is so expansive that you can do a lot of stories and stuff.
I know it's kind of like hard, kind of everyone's, easy way to shit on is kind of how what's going on with Marvel right now, where, like, you can argue, like, this is the Avengers aren't, like, part of it, you have all these characters who are in the Avengers, Cap, Iron Man, Thor, but the great thing about, say something like, and we will be talking about She-Hulk, don't worry about that, is that it's different and it gives you like an outlook that's not what you're used to when it comes to the Marvel, live action Marvel stuff.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. It is kind of a weird thing where like, with Marvel, people, there is probably a small contingent of fans who are,
they're just, you're right, because there is a small, just people who are like, I don't like how this is different. I'm like, well, you wanted it to be different.
Yeah, like there's constant thing like that, and I think, I think at the end of the day, it's always just, certain parts of the fandom wanting one thing, other parts of the fandom wanting a different thing, and it's constant back and forth of the creators being like, which part of the fandom do we listen to here? Or are they all just being whiny and we should do our own thing, And that's sort of the hard balancing act with these large multimedia franchises, where it's like, it feels hard to please everybody. So you try your best to make unique and interesting stories that hopefully most people can like. And I think Andor is, weirdly enough, I think, like I said earlier, I didn't think about a show about Andor, but with these first 3 episodes, I'm actually kind of intrigued, and I'm like very interested to see where it goes.
No, I'm with you on that too, because like, again, we're not going that much into it because there's a lot that happens in these 3 episodes, and for me, I'm very interested to see like, there's the two main leads, right? It's Cassian Andor, who got himself into a situation, and then this other guy whose name I'm kind of blanking out on, who's like this like
he's a bit he's kind of like a smuggler like guy, he's a
oh no, I'm not talking about the
wait, you're talking about
the antagonist of the show.
Yes, he's an officer of this security.
He's this like weird by the book guy who's like at the same time never has seen enough action to warrant any of the stuff that he wants to do.
Yeah, like I would like to. He reminds me of like the type of character that's in like say like a detective novel or whatever. Like he's like a rookie, or like he feels like he wants to prove himself, or whatever, and tries to get to solve, because obviously, he's trying to find Andor, because mainly, like, Andor did something, and he's very much like, we gotta figure this out, we gotta solve whoever did this. And his superiors are like, yeah, let's not look into it, like, let's just sort of, like, not cover it up, but, like, do, because we don't want the Empire having to deal with us and stuff. We do a lot of work just to make sure the Empire doesn't mess with us, and we have pretty good. So if they feel like, oh, we have crime happening in our city, they're gonna probably want to intervene and stuff. So let's just cover it up and stuff. Make it look a bit fancy. And he's like, no, we gotta get justice. Like a very like, we gotta find whoever's responsible for this. And it's sort of, he's very driven and trying to prove himself. And yeah, he basically sort of sets up a situation where he kind of is responsible for a lot of people getting messed up, and he's sort of just very shell shocked by all of it, and it's like, well, damn, this is all me.
Yeah, no, and then how that goes, it's just like really makes me want to see how that plays out. By the way, the show was shot beautifully. A lot of the actors are great. Probably the only complaint I have right now is that, it's slow. Oh, it's slow.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can see what you mean. It definitely
like that's not a bad thing in my opinion.
It has a very sort of slow pace, and I think I think it's on purpose. Like, it wants to sort of like take in all the stuff that's happening.
Yeah,
because realistically, because you could, in theory, like, wrap up these first 3 episodes in a single episode if you wanted to. Like, but at the same time, I think sort of the interesting thing about the way this show is paced is sort of like, it builds up sort of the tension of like,
right, because like for me, I think we talked it was off the screen, is that the second episode is very much the slowest one of the 3, but that's because it's a lot of setup, and it's a very slow paced setup. But like, by the time you get to episode 3, it ties everything up really nicely for that first little act that they have. Especially like the build up. There's a moment where like this one character, she's kind of like Andor's like adoptive mother, and she like says something like, "Man, this is some good build up. This is some good writing."
Yeah, like her whole bit in the 3rd episode is very like, it's, I feel like, yeah, you're right. It's definitely there to set up and like build upon like a growing tension of like, what's Andor gonna do, how he's gonna get out of the situation, blah blah blah. And she's actually being somewhat intimidating to these officers, and it's like, what are you on about? What's you're starting to freak us out now. Much like probably how the audience is feeling like, okay, but where's this all gonna go?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to like with these 3 episodes. I think
if you're expecting something different from Star Wars, this is the one to go with.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think this is the one Star Wars show that like wants to do different things. Like, it's not gonna go with Jedi stuff. It could be there, but I feel like it really is gonna try to do its own thing with how it sort of portrays the rise of the rebellion. During, because I believe the show does take place about 5 years before the events of Rogue One. I might need to double check on that, but yeah,
they've at least confirmed 2 seasons,
which, I mean, that could be, it's obviously gonna be interesting because
you're making a show about a character we all know dies, and it's so far engaging.
Well, I mean, I don't think knowing Andor's final fate is necessarily a bad thing, or like it removes tension and stuff. because
well, it's the argument of prequel movies, right? A prequel anything.
mm-hmm.
Like you already know the setup, and then you try to tie Aaron to the first or like the original thing that came out, and it's already hard. And it's kind of like really annoying where, like, you made such this thing that they said such a big deal, but once you find out what it is, it's kind of like lame.
I mean, yeah, I get what you mean. Because heck, it happens with the Star Wars prequels. Darth, Anakin Skywalker. I mean, given his interpretation and stuff, a lot of people, did feel like wait, this whiny kid ends up turning into like the biggest bad in the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
God, but at the same time,
you have like the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah, it gives Anakin a bit more depth, and
you can see a little bit of that swashbuckling, sort of like you can see why he's such a big deal.
Yeah, and I think like there is that stuff too, or like prequels can probably expand upon certain character stuff, or it can be like kind of you lose the like sort of like the this could have been. Is this what it was? This isn't nearly as interesting as I thought it was going to be. Although I will say, like, because I feel like, with how they might treat the Andor show, it's going to be more of just developing who he is, like, developing him into the person he's going to be in Rogue One, Like, seeing like what he is in Rogue One and like comparing him to like okay, so this is
because in this he's very inexperienced, but in Rogue One he's like way more. He's very jaded.
Yeah, somewhat. You know, I mean here he has a little bit of that jadedness to him, but he's very more of like just like. Yeah, I mean, the Empire sucks. What am I gonna do? Kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for these first 3 episodes, it's a very solid. I think I'm very intrigued by the Andor show so far, and I am very interested to see more of this because it's I think 12 episodes as well.
Yeah, and the fact that just the fact that they're already planning a second season. Which I think this I looked it up. It's gonna be based on like the 5 years. It's like 5 years between him now and what would happen in Rogue One. So you have 5 years of development, which is gonna be interesting. And yeah, we'll keep up to date with that one. But also we gotta talk about She-Hulk. Just to let you guys know, they baited us. They baited us hard.
Yeah.
And I love that they did that.
Yeah, obviously the end of the previous episode, but not this week's, was teasing Daredevil, his new suit and stuff. And this episode was more or less kind of one of those side episodes. How,
but it was a fun side episode.
Yeah, because it's very similar to her, the Wong episode with him,
So like coming back again.
Yeah, coming back again. This episode is more or less just, hey, it's Jen going to a wedding and having to deal with all that nonsense. You know.
Yeah, and it's one thing. Okay, so I commend on the fact that they both like to tie up loose threads that were made in the previous episode and continue through this episode. Because like in the last episode, the big thing was like, Titania, she's taking in the She-Hulk moniker. And we're now seeing the ramifications of the fact that she lost the trial because she is somehow involved in this wedding. Because why the fuck wouldn't she be?
She's a very spiteful person and legit just wants to ruin Jen's life. Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty funny,
Like, I'm expecting her to show up at her next point or whatever appointment she has.
Like, she's just gonna follow her around everywhere and try to, like, somehow jade and like slight her in any way just to get back at losing the trial. And meanwhile, like the B plot is Jen's assistant and the other lawyer lady from the last episode having to deal with a new metahuman guy called Mr. Immortal.
It was an actual character. I think he's on the Great Lake Adventures, which is like a joke of a team.
Yeah, because this guy, lives up to his name and is he's immortal. He can just revive himself, and he's caught up in a bunch of like people trying to sue him because anytime he got into a bad
relationship,
he just kill himself and like make a new identity.
And the reactions and the treatment of that kind of idea is just hilarious.
Yeah, because it's like the two lawyers like, Jesus, what the hell's wrong with you? Why did you do all of this?
Why can't you just say no?
Like, why can't you just like break it off? And it's like, it's hard to do all this stuff.
I'd rather kill myself.
It's just way easier just to,
off myself off. Yeah.
And then just move to a different city, get a new name, all that stuff.
Which is in thought a lot more darker than it should be.
Yeah, it really does have like some very dark implications. I mean, hell, the dude talks about like his first wife and stuff, like, and considering her name was like Count, or I think it was like Count or like Baroness something.
Yeah,
it's like, dude, this guy's been probably living since like the 1800s. What the fuck?
And like, I like the fact that they brought in like a very obscure comic book character, which like if you do anything like different to, no one's gonna care because like he's that obscure. And I love how they just treat it as a joke. Because that's what they would. Again, that's a very like She-Hulk thing to do in a comics, like for a She-Hulk book, and I'm glad they did that. And like, and the fact that they were able to tie it in with, it was just like a throwaway line, but they were tied into like the main thing going on in the story, which it's going to be tied into the reason why Daredevil's going to show up. But and there's a lot of like threads that are being narrowed in somehow to like to connecting all these episodes together when you think it's just like one-off episodes, but there's that little thread because like what happened in 2 episodes ago, Jen starts a dating profile, and then what happens there because of the issue with Titania, she has to go back to her dating profile, use it
as evidence of her using the She-Hulk name far before Titania copyrighted it.
And then like she gets advice from her coworker, which in turn leads her to the situation she is in now in this episode, where she herself is kind of like interested in this one guy and is interested in her being her and not to focus on the She-Hulk situation.
Yeah, because the whole joke of the wedding is that like her friend who invited her to be her bridesmaid is like, hey, listen, you can't be showing me up here. I need you to stay as Jen. You can't be She-Hulking it around. Which upsets Jen a bit, or it's like,
yeah, because like she's at this point already taking pride in the fact that she's She-Hulk.
And not only that, but it's also just she feels a little bit like, I feel like you're just like messing with me, like,
yeah,
because it does seem like there's multiple moments where like she has to be the one to like clean up stuff. Her like groomsman or whatever is this weird looking dog, that's just like,
who? Its weddings are weird,
dude. This lady is just so weird and paranoid about stuff, so I you definitely feel for Jen being at this point. It's like, man, she just wants to just relax at this point. She doesn't even care about like actually doing most of her bridesmaid stuff. Like everybody else, like the bride is straight up just like trying her best to like not make Jen's life a living hell, but like, she's just not she's like, it's all about me. Jen, stop making it about you. And it's like, I'm not making it about me. I'm just being She-Hulk me. It's like, stop trying to upstage me, Jen. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, I won't be She-Hulk. It's weird though.
You invited me because
you invited me. Why are you just weirded out? Because, I mean, heck, she's even like, how you doing, Jen? You know, it's like, and Jen's like trying to explain, oh, you know, I'm head of this new law firm. I got superpowers. Like, no, I don't care about that. How's your relationships been?
Well, to be fair, they also said like, we're going a little more into it, really, honestly. That like she's that one friend who you stop talking to,
And then, you know, like, you just kind of have to be like, yeah, sure,
yeah. Which like we've all been in.
Yeah, it does happen, you know, sometimes where you meet people, you know, and then like in high school or whatever, and then you grow distant, you know, and they invite you back to something, and you're just sort of like, we don't really hang out that much anymore. I mean, I guess you're still my friend, but boy, have we drifted apart.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, so, you know, it's just shenanigans there. Obviously, I think the more interesting thing is the like final scene of the show where
we get hints of like
a grander plot, like tying into what happened with her and the wrecking crew. You know, them trying to get her blood, and it seems like whoever wants Jen's blood is still out there and is ready to make a move and has been spying on her at this wedding.
Not good.
Yep, definitely not good.
By the way, Titania, we said earlier, Titania shows up, and she is messing with Jen.
Yeah, like she's just playing like, oh, I'm just, you know, why would I ever be here to have, you know,
You're like, bullshit.
why would I have a grudge? I'm just being me, hanging out this wedding, and it's like, you're gonna try to kill me, and I know you're gonna do that. Stop lying.
Yeah. Well, can I say like there was like a thing going on with Jen that I was like, oh, please don't make this like a super like dramatic twist, and thank God there was no twist.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think it's just because in that situation she was just a little bit drunk, and since she's not like in She-Hulk form or whatever, she can't like, you know, her tolerance is of human level, not She-Hulk of Hulk level. So, you know, it's she's like, oh, what, God damn it.
Well, it was more of like her and this one other dude.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I know where you're going with though, but yeah, they didn't do what thankfully they didn't do what I thought I did. Some of the jokes were okay in this episode though. I'll be honest. I think the more comedic ones were in the past, but this one was still pretty enjoyable. The Mario Kart joke was too funny to me.
Oh, they're just like, I don't even know how that even. I agree with Jen. I don't know how that works.
Like, you shouldn't get like it's funny because like that joke made no sense in my mind.
I mean, yeah. Although there probably is some people's like they're just like, wait, how is that even a joke?
Yeah.
You know, but you know, everybody's a comedian apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, heck, Jen says it herself at the beginning of the episode. It's like, yeah, it's a little wedding episode. You know, comes out of nowhere. Doesn't really mean that much. Don't worry about it.
But it's still a very entertaining episode too, because like, you know, fun stuff happens, and honestly, the Mr. Immortal part is still one of the better parts of the episode.
I won't lie. Like, if anything, it definitely feels like probably for some people the B plot is probably more interesting than the A plot.
But when has the B plot not been the most interesting?
I mean, yeah. To be fair, we did have I think the second episode with the shapeshifter, Asgardian shapeshifter.
Yeah,
you know that whole B plot. What definitely was probably a lot entertaining, just considering her shenanigans.
Yeah. But also, again, like, just the fact that it's able to tie in together makes it really satisfying. Even if you feel like whether or not you feel the A play was weaker or better. And yeah, no, that's I think that's about it. She-Hulk's still, you know, pretty good show. And I think, like I said earlier, the fact that it's able to show us a different aspect of the Marvel Universe is probably one of the best things to do. Because, like, again, Mr. Immortal, holy shit. You really brought that guy out? That guy? But heck. You know, everyone has their own thing. But anyways, guys, that's a good place to end the episode. So if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to follow us on all social medias at the Geek Centurions. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And be sure to support us on there. We are most active on Instagram, where we have a link tree to all podcast sites we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all the like. And you'll find a link to the YouTube for all you audio listeners out there who want to put a face to the voice. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe in any form or way. And we do have a Patreon that supports, where you guys can support us in any way. A lot of anyways today. Yeah, well, I'm a little tired. Jesus, I got back from work. Anyways, yeah, that's the end of the episode. If you guys enjoy us, be sure to let us know. Anyways, me, your boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
You guys have a good one. Peace.